Hello there. Sure. I can take you with me. What do you mean by the others? Hello and welcome back to another video with me, Dark Twisted Gamer. And today, I'm going to be doing some more Descendant. Now, in the last Descendant video I did, where I beat the boss, I got a comment suggesting to do a challenge, where I would try and collect all the copper golems only using the tarnished kit. I made a few modifications to this challenge, so that I'm not going to be here for eternity. But what I changed is that I'm allowed to bring in keys in order to get to the different floors, and I can also bring things that I need to get to the copper golems, like a pair of boots that have Frostwalker on them. Now, I did, to make it a little harder, and make up for the fact that I'm bringing things in, I'm not allowed to wear any armor, minus the boots with Frostwalker, and I am only allowed to have one weapon on me at a time, and it has to be from the loot crates or stuff that I craft. And I'm also allowed to take food and ender pearls, but I'm not allowed to take anything from the trial spawners, like the rewards from killing the mobs. Now, can I collect all these copper golems? Watch to the end to find out. I also forgot to mention I'm allowing myself to back up the world prior to starting the first run, just so I don't have to recollect the certain items that I need. So the first round wasn't that eventful. I was just busy trying to figure out where all the copper golems were so I could remember and quickly gather them each run. And I just went around killing mobs only when necessary, just like it in the room with the husks. There's actually 22 copper golems. I counted them all in the circle around it. And then I got to the zombie maze where I did not have a weapon. And so I ended up getting cornered by the zombies and ended up dying. Now, the second round did not go much better than the first. I was able to collect one copper golem, but then I failed the parkour in the lava room again, and then fell in. The third round was worse because, while trying to figure stuff out, I went in the zombie maze again and got cornered. The fourth round, I fell in the lava room again, and on the fifth round, I had a close call with the lava pool in the magma cube room, but I ended up deciding it was a bad round and decided to reroll. Now, the sixth round, I was doing pretty good. I did almost die to a baby husk, but I ran into the parkour room next door, and I was able to get it trapped in the powdered snow. And after collecting the copper golems, a baby zombie from the zombie maze came out after me, but I was able to run into the lava room and push it in. I found an iron sword from one of the barrels, but while trying to fight the pillagers in the boxing room, I died to a rogue zombie. The next two rounds, I fell in the lava room again, and on the 9th round, I pearled into a skeleton and decided to reset. Now, the 10th round was the first round that I was actually starting to do pretty well. I got all the copper golems on the first floor, and after getting down to the second floor, I ran to the breeze room, and I was able to get all of them with ease because the breeze spawner was on cooldown. Then next I went to the drown tank, and after collecting the copper golems in there, I went to leave, but a bunch of drowns had spawned, so while fighting them, a trident drown spawned. So, after a close call and a long game of chicken between the two of us, I managed to slip out while it was on the other side of the tank. After that, I tried heading to the shop past the bogs, but I realized the door was closed. Then while I was fighting some husks, my axe broke. So I passed a Vindicator spawner while trying to find a new weapon, And to get rid of the Vindicators, I lured them over to the big drown room, and I jumped to the top of the outline to the tunnel into the drown tank, but I miscalculated the range that they had, and they were able to hit me.
What?
The next round, I ended up finding an iron sword in the bar room right off the bat, but I died trying to do the parkour in the big lava room again. On the 12th run, I activated the skeletons in the adjacent room to the bar, and they ended up chasing me out of there while I was trying to collect the copper golems. But one continued to follow me and ended up pushing my luck too far.
I hate skeletons.
Round 13 was the best round so far. I decided to go to the boxing ring to get the 2 copper golems there out of the way first, except I almost died right away when the pillagers spawned because I got too close. But after performing a run and attack maneuver around the boxing ring, I was able to defeat all the pillagers. I later found some steak from the crate in the secret room behind the spider and skeleton room before fighting some husks to get the 22 copper golems in the mossy room. A baby husk once again tried to foil my rescue plan, but I was able to prevent them from killing me by running to the lava room and pushing them into the lava. I ended up re-rolling the walls to reach the rest of the copper golems and almost got enough iron to make an iron pickaxe. Once I got down to the second floor, I dashed for the golem in the forklift, but some cave spiders tried to stop me from saving the golems in the assembly room. I traded my stone sword for a copper axe I found in the crate. However, I quickly traded that for the iron sword I found in the forklift secret room. I conquered my PTSD of the drown tank room, and thankfully no trident drowns ended up spawning. After that, I entered the breeze room where the dry gas conveyor is, and I was able to save the golems in there with no resistance from the resident breezes. However, the door to the next room was closed, so I headed for the other route. A baby husk once again tried to stop me, but I was able to trap it in the water of the big drown room. I was once again disappointed that the route to the shop past the bogs was closed, so I had to re-roll the walls. This closed the husk forklift room, but opened the room with the bogs past the breeze room. However, nothing else opened. So I re-rolled once again, and this opened the route to the shop past the bogs. I found a cracked rock in the crate before saving the copper golems in the shop. However, the bogs weren't going to give up, so after fighting 2, I was able to grab the copper golems, and I ran back. I re-rolled once again, and this opened the room to the magma cubes, which I barely managed to survive. I grabbed the remaining copper golems and headed for the 3rd floor. Once down to the final floor, I ran right for the worn version of the shop and had to fight off some slimes that took up residence. I ran past the evokers and barely made it past the endermites before having to fight them and some husks in the spawn room, where I found that endermites are almost impossible to see on nether brick.
Oh shoot! Where did you come from?
After that, I went to the blood toll room and fought some zoglins from the sign in the adjacent room like the coward I am. I decided not to cross the big parkour room and headed back past the husk and skeleton room by the elevator. I came face to face with another Vindicator spawner before deciding it was not worth it, and returning back to the spawn room to go and solve the light puzzle room next to the endermites. After that, I got a bit more brave and returned to the Vindigators, but then I decided just to run past them. But a Vindicator and 2 blazes pinned me against a big wall. However, after seeing an opening, I was able to run past them and back around to the Endermites before passing through the bog room and finding another room of Vindicators. I returned back to the Endermite room and entered the B room that was next door that had opened after I rerolled the walls, and was lucky enough to find 4 pumpkin pies in the crate at the end of the room, which allowed me to fully heal and run past the Vindicators to the last room with golems in it. Once in the sweatshop, I stood on the platform outside and killed the Vindicators easily, but after I entered, some pillagers spawned, so I ran back to the pillars in the lava room next door and got sniped by the pillagers.
How do I fight pillagers when I'm in the middle of lava and I have no shield?
Even after the devastating loss of the last round, I still managed to pick myself up and continue. So for round 14, I entered the bar room and I was able to find a second scribe key, which was useless. And then I entered the skeleton room next to the bar room, but I ended up activating the skeleton spawner again, and they ended up chasing me out of the bar room while I was collecting the copper golems. However, random skeleton continued to chase me, so I ran into the lava room to try and lose it, but I fell in the lava. Around 15, I ended up entering the zombie maze again, and this time I was actually able to kill a few zombies, but I misjudged the distance of a zombie and missed the crit, and died. Around 16, I actually did quite well. I managed to get almost all the copper golems on the first floor, only leaving the boxing ring with the pillagers left. I almost died to the pillagers and a random skeleton 3 different times, but I managed to defeat them and get the copper golems. Once on the second floor, I searched the pillager room near spawn, and I managed to find 2 diamonds that I used later to make a diamond sword with a crafting table I found in the drowned tank room. I was able to leave the drowned tank room easily since the other door to the room was open, thankfully. I once again found the bog route past the husks to the shop closed, so after killing a family of husks, I went around to the breeze room. And I found that the door on the other side was open, so I was able to save the copper golems in the magma cube room, where I also found a cracked rock in the barrel. I returned to the spawn room and had to re-roll the walls 3 times just to get a path to the shop open. I was able to kill the bogs that attacked me easily with the diamond sword that I crafted earlier, before saving the copper golems trapped in the shop. Then I returned to the breeze room and found that the corner room past the bogs and magma cubes was finally open. I saved the copper golems before re-rolling the walls again to save the final copper golems past the slime room next to spawn. Once I had gotten to the 3rd floor, I passed the wither skeletons and headed through the blood pool room to go save the golems from some zombie hogs. Then I passed through the large crumbling parkour room next door as a shortcut to the sweatshop, but I ended up finding the door closed, so I was forced to use my ender pearl to escape some indicators. I ended up pearling right into the Huskins skeleton spawners in the room next door, so I got pinned in the boss door room. But once I saw an opening, I was able to re-roll the walls, and I entered the light puzzle room, where I had to fight some endermites and husks. Once I solved the puzzle, I was able to get some food, so I headed past the bogs and indicators to the sweatshop. This time, I hid from the pillagers amongst the different looms and ambushed them one at a time, but I was forced to the upper level by a rogue blaze that I had summoned while passing through the other side previously. After I finally defeated the pillagers, I freed the laborers and headed to free the copper golem trapped at the shop. The slimes cornered me, but after a close call, I was able to push them back. However, they prevented me from seeing a random evoker wander into the shop, who summoned some vexes to finish the job. Round 17 went really well. This round, I was able to find 5 iron and 2 sticks between the zombie room next to the husk ring, the secret room behind the skeleton spider room, and the lava room next to spawn, so I was able to make an iron pickaxe for the first time in this challenge. On the 2nd floor,
I got one of the luckiest rounds where I was able to get most of the copper golems without even having to re-roll a single wall. I only had to re-roll it once to get the magma cubes and another time to get to the shop. I also ended up finding a diamond sword in the bog room, which helped a lot. Once I got to the 3rd floor, I started running to the 3rd floor shop. However, I wanted to start by killing the evokers, hoping this would make it easier, but I was seriously wrong about this. I barely survived long enough to kill the first evoker before having to retreat. I was hoping that the totem that he dropped would help me kill more of them after I healed. However, a skeleton had different plans and popped it for the Vexus. I was hoping I could still get lucky like the first time, but I was mistaken as the evokers were already spawned to see me before I got close, and I ended up dying to a Vex on the killing blow to the 2nd evoker. Surely I'd pick myself up and continue again like last time.
No, I'm done. I freaking hate this challenge.
Oh, never mind. If this video gets 100 likes, I'll attempt this challenge again.